Welcome to the House of Azor podcast. I'm your host, William, and joining me today will be Julie and Sean.
Hello.
And we'll be discussing One Cut of the Dead. It is a movie that had gotten some steam coming out, some of the festivals and being shown different places. And there was controversy because before they had any type of distribution lined up for the U.S., it ended up on Amazon Prime, where it was a bootleg copy somebody had uploaded.
Yeah,
it was up there for like a day or two, and then it got taken down. And then it got acquired, through proper channels by Shudder. So it's available to watch on Shudder streaming, and you can also purchase physical copies of it, right?
Only not in America.
Oh, okay. So
I had to import it from UK. I imported this movie because I'm like, Derek's not going to take the time to sign up for Shudder. I like this movie a whole lot. First of all, I try to get through with no spoilers about what this film actually is.
Yeah.
And you really just got to give it a chance. You got to go with it. But I knew Derek went and signed up for Shudder, so I'm going to import a copy. Because if this gets pulled off streaming, I want to own this film because I liked it so much.
Yeah.
Let him borrow it. He didn't watch it, so he's not here.
Yeah. Well, so too, like you said, we don't want to spoil what all's going in the movie and what it is. But what I would say right up front is I have zombie fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
Aside from rewatching some of the old classics, so we did Return of the Living Dead 3 somewhat recently, and I enjoyed that.
That was a different type of zombie.
Have we released that one yet, or is that on the...
We have not released
Okay,
it yet.
so we recorded...
Spoiler alert.
We have recorded an episode about Return of the Living Dead 3, but that one goes in a different direction, so I was kind of like, oh, okay, this isn't just straight up zombies. It was more going on. But this movie, have zombie fatigue. I really stopped watching Walking Dead years ago. Don't care about any of their sequels or spinoffs. Anytime I see an independent zombie film show up, it's like, no, thank you.
Train to Busan was good. I don't know if you already said that.
Yeah, we had seen that a while back.
Yeah, that was good. That was a good one, a recent good zombie film.
Because I think we watched it 2 years ago or something.
Yeah.
But for the most part, a new independent zombie film mostly just, for me, gets a groan and a hard pass because I don't need to see those same things tackled again. This movie, without spoiling anything, it doesn't. If you're zombied out, you can still find a lot here to really enjoy. But
you have to give it time.
37 minutes.
Yeah, it's hard to. Yeah, wait till you see the second title card, basically.
Yeah,
because
and then you'll kind of get it. But it's on Shudder. Watch it on Shudder if you haven't seen it before you. We'll go into with no spoilers for a bit, and then we'll jump into it because it's hard to explain it.
How is this movie marketed? I didn't know anything about it except that William was like, "Oh, we have to watch One Cut of the Dead," and I didn't know anything about it.
It's marketed. Okay, look, let me get the premise here.
So what can I say is what I'm getting at. I want to know how it's marketed.
The synopsis is, let's see here. Let me make sure this is. The makers of a low-budget zombie film called One Cut of the Dead are shooting at an abandoned water filtration plant. The director argues with the actors and eventually abandons them. That's not really what happens. But as the actors await for him to return, a real zombie apocalypse begins to the delight of the director, who insists that the camera operator continues filming. That's the first part of the premise, basically. There's more to it, but the back of the box on streaming, that's all that it says on streaming.
Oh, really?
Is that, that's all you know about the film.
Man, so so without giving anything away, that unfortunately is doing a disservice to the film, how it's being marketed.
But it also is a delight to kind of go into it and just watch it blind.
So it's the weird thing where... it gets on Shudder, it's a streaming service, which I think really lowers the bar to entry for people to watch it because especially if you have Shudder. But if you want to check this out, there is this, and there's the Creep Show series, and there is other stuff on Shudder. I know they sponsor a bunch of podcasts. We get zero money from them, so or we don't get stuff for free from them. But you can go to their website and you can sign up, and I think you get at least a week free, and then you can sign up for a year, or you can do
a year is
whatever.
Under $50 for a whole year, or it's $5 a month. I think you should do it just to support this horror streaming channel. If you like the horror industry and you want to support it, if that's your thing, $5. I mean, it's like donating to your local NPR station for $5 a month.
So-
You know, if that's your thing, you like it, and you want this to
point is,
exist because there's so much competition. They make
have-
original content, Joe Bob Show, just everything.
Yeah, so they have stuff on there you can check out. But this is like a movie where, because there's been a few movies where if you unveil the entire premise, then the experience isn't as enjoyable. So the only thing that I knew about this movie going in was that it's kind of like a one-take deal and there are zombies. And the short film we had made back, now a few weeks back in October, Evil Ahead, was like a one-take short film for a contest that requires stuff to be one take. And I watched a bunch of the entries to that, and it's like, I'm tired of watching one takes. Like, oftentimes when people make something a big deal that it's a one take, it doesn't make the end product better for being one take. It's just the kind of show-off element of, look what I did this in one take. And a lot of times it's just doesn't support the story being told better. It doesn't make it more enjoyable. It makes a lot of the action look terrible because there's only so much you can do when you're showing it. It's a lot of people doing this out of frame with somebody laying below. And then this movie definitely played into that, but that's not all there is to it. And I did a 180 on this. The beginning, I was like, man, I don't know if we can finish this. This is kind of rough.
I was on my phone half the time, and
But you shouldn't, because so much of
Yeah.
that is set up for the payoff.
Yes.
And I tell people, I'm
Knowing
like,
that
look,
now.
just pay attention. I mean, it's so hard to do that now, though.
So-
It is so hard to do that because everybody has
Yeah.
different tastes. If I'm recommending this to somebody, they may think like, oh, this is what I'm into, like what the first part of this film is. And which,
Well, I guess
So what I was going to say really quickly. So I was a theater major in college. If anyone has experience doing theater and I currently like is a theatrical actor, or you have experience working on a set, working on a crew on stage, watch this movie. It takes a while to get through it, but just trust me. So that being said, even though like you start out watching it and you're just like, ugh, but as it goes into the one take, it genuinely is impressive.
it is, yeah. Like I said,
the stamina these actors
yeah,
had.
I enjoyed some
Oh
of
my
that for
God.
sure.
And the guy holding the camera.
And two, like, so the other thing, like, just to get some basic things out of the way. So I don't know if you mentioned, it's a Japanese film. It is subtitles. It's in Japanese. And it's not something that's the kind of bizarre sensibility that really doesn't translate that you sometimes get out of Japanese movies. A lot of Japanese like anime and all that, Japanese culture is very much consumed by Americans. And it seems like most people had an anime phase in high school or some point in their life at least.
Derek's got the Goku right here.
Yeah, but this movie doesn't really lean into like the kind of like cultural corners that you really need to be immersed in that culture to be able to
Right.
appreciate, which sometimes happens. Like with stuff from even stuff from Europe, you get stuff from England that's really in the minutia of British life. And it like you can kind of enjoy it, but you're like, I really don't understand the importance of this Jaffa cake thing. But which you definitely will. If somebody goes to England and comes back, they will have those, and they will give you one.
My sister did that
Oh.
when she went to England. She brought them back, and I ate one and was like, "Yeah, that's a thing."
But so there's that. And then what's funny is like it's like the movie a lot like the one take is shot on a camera not dissimilar from the one if you're watching the YouTube version we're shooting this on. It was like a Sony. That's the NX30. I think theirs was the 100. So like a better version that you can use for broadcast stuff. But like when it starts out, it kind of looks grainy. It kind of, it's a camera that looks like it's running on auto settings because it's adjusting as they're going from like an inside a more dimly lit warehouse to the outdoors. And it's kind of going back and forth and they're zooming in and out and autofocus. There's all this stuff where, a lot of hallmarks of things that you'd see at a film festival because like, and just be kind of like, oh man, this is.
I think it was shot for $27,000, which a film we were both involved in was shot for less than that, but not too much more less than that. I think.
Yeah, without naming what it is, but yeah.
And well, I mean, the only one me and you.
Without naming.
I've said it was less than that. I'm saying less than
Okay.
that, but not like extremely far off.
Oh, okay. That's what I thought.
But so it was shot in 8 days for $27,000, and it made nearly $8 million at the box office. I think at least at the time of that writing of that article, which
Japan.
was Yeah, I guess, but I don't know if it was released other places too. But
mean, it was
anyway,
released-
huge success. It has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. And you
Yeah,
know,
that's
that's like
deserving.
whatever. But yeah, so like, just know that much that like, I know not every film that has a 90% is even good or your thing, but that's enough to say, look, just give it a chance.
Yes.
And pay attention to the film.
Especially if you do theater and when
Yeah.
we get into the, and I don't know. I don't know if any people like, because
Not
there's,
theater, filmmaking, anything.
especially,
I'll get into
yeah.
more of it, but you know, there's elements that from my previous career that was like, oh yeah, that's right on for me. Like this film was like partially made for me also. But again, without going into it, I think I love all the actors. I think they're
Yeah.
very, when they're trying to be funny, they're very funny, very humorous.
I didn't think I was actually going to laugh, and I did.
Yeah, this is like,
Yeah.
you will, by the end of it, you will have laughed a lot for this film,
Yeah.
probably. It's just like, I don't know. I don't want to say too much. I think we could probably kind of start to wrap it up. But
Yeah.
for me, this is like one of my top 5 horror films of the year, just because it was so surprising, so different. The execution was so well done. I
Yeah.
think it's just like the premise is great. Once you figure out, you know, once you get far enough in the film, the premise is great. Execution, it's unique. But I will say that there's been, you know, so the premise is them shooting a film and you're watching these people make a film and zombies attack or whatever, and they continue shooting. There's been like 2 other horror related things or horror adjacent things Japanese things that I've watched. There's I think Junji Ito adaptation of a manga where it's about these guys, just like they're making a horror film and they cast this like model that is like almost horrendous basically. And she turns out to be like a monster that eats men or whatever. But of course, you know, they're like almost making fun of her, like, oh, she's so weird looking, we gotta cast her for the monster. And like there's just a huge creepy story, but it's centered around that. And then Why Don't We Play in Hell, which is a really fabulous film as well. It's slow to build up, but it is a film where it's about they basically are getting like the Yakuza and another gang to fight, but they're trying to shoot it and make a film out of it. And it is very, very funny.
Well-
that takes a little while, and you've got to give that some patience as well. But by the end of it, I was like, oh my gosh, I hadn't laughed this hard at a film in a long time.
because
There's
there's-
another film that is similar to this in some
And there's
regards.
a lot of stuff like, you know, there's Galaxy Quest about the cast and crew of a Star
Oh,
Trek
I
type
love
show.
Yeah,
that you
yeah.
got into.
I was obsessed with that when I was in middle school. I
Yeah.
don't know.
A lot of people, yeah.
Because like
I was obsessed with it.
there have been like This Is the End, the Seth Rogen, Jay Baruchel, you know, Danny McBride, all that group, James Franco, all them. There's that movie about they're at a party and then the apocalypse happens. So there's a ton of movies about actors being in a scenario where then things go to hell and what they're filming a movie about or talking about, or you know, like they're just inserted into a situation. There's a bunch of stuff that's done that, but I don't think I've seen something that did it the way this did it.
Yeah.
No,
And like you mentioned, like, you know, being shot like on a $27,000 budget, because there's parts of it like this definitely looks like something you would see at a festival, but the enjoyment factor of that, you know, like once you get through the end of the movie, it's like I said, you might start out and be kind of groaning and it's just like, ugh, but then once you get to the end of it, you should be having a fun time, you know.
Yeah.
Because like I said, I'm zombied out.
And it's a big ask. I understand it's a big ask to say, hey, just get through this part of it. But
The 37 minutes.
yeah, it's not that big of an ask, but it is to blindly take somebody's
Yeah.
advice and say, or you know, and say,
Yeah.
okay, just watch this. I know it's hard not to get on your phone, not to do this or whatever, and just give it a chance because time's valuable. There's so much other stuff to watch. But this is like definitely one I wanted us to cover
Yeah.
because for me, like this is one of my top 5 of the year because it was just surprising and fun and not like anything else really.
And like I said, it's just one of those things where, you know, because we had gone to Days of the Dead recently and saw some of like the short films they had on display there. And you go to these festivals and things like that, and you see movies that are, you know, like parts of this, and they go up and talk about how they made the next, you know, they've made the next piece of art that's going to be setting culture for the next 40 years. And like, really? Did you not watch what I watched? And then this movie kind of takes the piss out of that stuff in a way that you wouldn't expect. So
Yeah.
very enjoyable. If you're into independent filmmaking and stuff like that, absolutely watch it. If you're a zombie fan, you can definitely watch it. So there's just like a lot of, if you're a fan of like, I don't know if this is like Bowfinger, like about movies being made type stuff, then this is one to check out. It's not made on like a big, huge Hollywood scale. And I could definitely see how they would want to remake this for the American audiences with, English speaking cast and a little bit bigger budget.
They did. Did you see they did that like somewhat sequel or whatever? It's One Cut of the Dead in Hollywood.
Yeah.
But it's still a Japanese cast. But and there was also some controversy about it being based on a play. And not a play, but maybe something the comedy troupe had done or something. I don't know. I don't know if the director was part of it or what, but it ended up they saying, "Oh no, it had nothing to do with it." But in the credits, you see they say that it was based on that. So I don't know if like that was part of the deal. But I guess it was just some small. I don't know what that is. I want to know more about the history of that and how this would translate to something on stage this well. You know what I mean? That's what I want to know.
I have a lot to say about that once we get to spoilers.
Yeah.
I'm just really antsy.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
So I guess, like I said, like it's an experience you really need to kind of go into it not knowing the full breadth of what's going to unfold throughout to really enjoy it. Because like I said, I did a 180. I went from being like, oh man, it's kind of a slog, to then by the end of it, just really being into it and really having a lot of fun. So
I think that people should go watch it and then come back and watch the spoilers and see if anyone can relate to what I'm about to say.
Yeah.
Because
I mean, it is so much the experience for, depends on just kind of going in and being surprised, I think.
Yeah, that is. I'm like, because I was literally on my phone just like, I gotta sit through this for the next hour and a half or whatever. And then I'm so glad that like we didn't know shit going into it. I'm so glad.
Did I say I think Julie should watch this?
Yeah.
Didn't I say that?
Yeah.
I think I told him, I said, okay, I think Julie should watch this film because I thought you would get some enjoyment out of it. And I for the first like whatever minutes of it, I wouldn't have recommended that type of film if I didn't think to you specifically like, hey, Julie should probably watch this because you like horror, but you're not You're not somebody who watches every single low budget zombie film that comes out, I
mean, because like even though we make stuff on the low budget scale, we may have feature anything, but a lot of stuff is just hard to watch.
Yeah.
And this one definitely trumps most of the stuff I've seen, out of these independent festivals, just because it turns it into fun. Like I said, I don't know if they could really translate that super well. I mean, it's a pretty basic premise when you think about it, and it's been done in a lot of formats. It's just, they probably screw it up. If they try to translate it and convert it. So giving it a score out of 10 is kind of tough. Like I enjoyed it a lot, at least like an 8. Like once I finally got done watching it, I was like, oh, I really enjoyed this. And really had a ton of fun with it.
Do you have a score?
So this is like, overall, it's like a 8-9. Because I'm also looking at it from the perspective of like what it took to make this. So it's definitely like at least a 9 at the end of it, just because I really enjoyed it.
Yeah. I mean, so I watched it originally. I think I was messaging you guys when I watched it. I was like, oh my God, this is like my thing. Like this film is my jam. And then I watched it again last night. I actually stayed up and I was very tired, but I did not fall asleep watching this at all. Like I managed to stay up the entire time. I didn't have to watch it again, but I actually wanted to. And I enjoyed it pretty much as I did that first time. And I actually would be fine watching this multiple more times. I mean, I give it like at least a 9, the first part is fine. And then once you see the film once, the first part is better, is even better. And you can see how that can happen too. Like it was even better watching it this time because I'm like, okay, now this first part is working really well for me. Even though I enjoyed it okay enough the first time, I was waiting for, why does this have 100% on Rotten Tomatoes? I was waiting for that the first time.
They need to make a video game of this with Hideo Kojima making it.
So anyway,
it's on Shudder in the U.S.
Yeah.
Do not get it illegally. Go and stream it.
Or if you want to import a disc, the disc you import from the UK plays on my American Blu-ray player. Fine. So you can import that disc. I think I probably did pay like $30 maybe on Amazon at the end of the day after shipping. Maybe $35. I don't know. But you can import it. Took a couple weeks to get here though.
Yeah, so now we're going to move into discussing the spoilers for this. And I definitely think, like I said, duck out if you haven't seen this. Go watch it because it is very fun. It's very enjoyable. And if you give it a chance, there's a lot of enjoyment to be had there.
There was some guy on Instagram talking about some movies. Like, oh, this movie was boring. I don't know what it was. And then he was like, yeah, try to watch One Cut of the Dead too. I turned it off because I just got really bored. And I said, hey, man, I understand. You got to whatever. I said, but I'll just say, I think you should probably try to do it again because I'm sure so many people have done that with this film. I'm sure they have. And, at some point, you just got to start telling people what the film is. Like, I think in a couple years, if people are like, no, you're like, look, here's what it is. Watch it,
So on that note, can I please start out with what it is? Because
so full spoilers.
So full spoilers. If anyone knows the play Noises Off by playwright Michael Frayn,
which I'm sure everyone listening does.
Some people made. I mean, it's a pretty big play. But again, as someone who went to college and studied theater, we did it at school. So it's a 3-act play. It's a play within a play, and it's hilarious. And it's got so much physical humor. And the great thing about it is usually you have a stage that can turn 360 so that you have like the set that you see an actual play on. But then they turn it 180 and you see backstage. Oh, cool. And so there's literally parts where they turn the stage. And so people are on the other side, opposite of the audience, performing on stage while we get to see the backstage of all the crazy bullshit of things messing up and them like trying to get a drunk actor into place for their cue. And it's amazing. And again, it requires an amazing amount of stamina. And so anyway, it's a farce, and it's just, and so if anyone is familiar with Noises Off and you enjoy it, because how could you not, then you will love this movie.
Yeah, so So like I said, you get to the 37 minutes of slog, which is like a one-take zombie film that's not super great, like but video quality.
I think it's fine enough. I was I was enjoying it enough where I was like, okay, like this might not be my thing, but I liked it.
Yeah, good for them for doing this.
My point was when I gotten through before I didn't realize that we were watching it, and at some point I think I'd used the bathroom or something, and I paused it. I was like, good God, there's another hour of this. I was like, I don't know how much I can stretch this. And because I was like, is it just really in this one location where they run around in circles? So like I said, if you had just released the zombie portion from the first 37 minutes, you released that at a film festival here locally, or wherever, it might get some discussion, but it probably would be like, it's whatever.
Well, the poor girl who was running around just, the entire time. I was like, someone shut her up.
Yeah, because so all the things that
also good for her for not losing her voice.
As we were watching it, all the stuff we were both complaining about, it's like, all she's doing is screaming. It's like,
but
why?
Then you see the end and you're like,
It's like, why is in the middle of this action she just
standing there screaming?
Yeah. Or they stare for a minute and nobody's doing anything, and then all of a sudden they're like, and then they just start going into some random thing about I have a new hobby. You're like, what are you talking about hobby?
And then there's just these like other random things like that, and then like the zombie comes in, looks like it spits on people, and you're like, what's that? And it's a drunk guy that blew chunks, and he got sick with the actors like freaking out over it and like about to cry.
I know, the poor guy who loses the arm.
Yeah.
And it's just hilarious when you get to see the context of it.
Yeah, so about 37 minutes in, once it ends, basically it ends on this shot. It ends on the final shot, which is like her standing over like a pentagram, basically. And then the credits start rolling, and then it says like One Cut of the Dead. And then it flashes back, like a month later, maybe?
Or a month prior.
Yeah.
A month prior, yeah. And so you see the director of that film rehearsing with people on the rooftop, which includes one of the actors from this. They're not rehearsing for this film, but now it is traditionally shot. It is not shot docu-style or
it went from being shot on
and it looks a lot better.
Yes.
Yeah, it went from being shot like on a DV cam that's like for broadcast stuff to being shot, I think, on like Sony A7R, so like similar to mirrorless cameras that people around here using a ton of projects. So it didn't really look like a cinematic, huge budget film, but it looked good and it looked more traditional.
Yeah. So then he basically gets pulled in. He's done like some TV work and stuff like that.
They said he's very average.
Yeah. He says his motto is fast, cheap, but average. And they're launching a zombie television station.
Yeah.
And as like one of their gimmicks or promos they want to do, they bring him in for a meeting and they say, hey, we want to do like a half an hour zombie movie.
live. In
on
one take.
cut.
One take. Well, first they say
Yeah.
one take first thing, and they said live, and he just laughs it off. Like, no, we're serious. But he, of course, just doesn't turn it down. And so he has this huge weight on his shoulders of like having to worry about doing this. And then it rolls into just seeing the logistics of dealing with just, getting this stuff up off its feet, basically. Like all the actors and people cooperating, and everybody has their own issues going on. Somebody's got a baby in there. And
I can only drink.
Yes,
Like,
yeah,
only drink soft water.
Yes, and
Yeah.
then and then we also dip into his family. That his wife was a former actress, but we don't know why she's not an actress anymore quite
I
yet.
see why initially.
His daughter doesn't respect him at all. So then it kind of just rolls into like this, very traditional story almost. And then probably I don't know, maybe like 50 or an hour into it, they come back around and it's them starting to shoot this one take that you just saw. So the whole 37 minutes is a setup for basically maybe some of the humor and drama in the very last.
Because it's
end
kind
of
of
it.
like
That's the climax.
yeah.
So it's kind of like the premise almost of the majority of Back to the Future too.
Yeah.
As you're going back to what happened previously, but now you're seeing the other side of events.
Or spoilers, Avengers Endgame.
Yeah, so like and so like the right before the production's about to go, one of the actresses and the actor, supposed to be the director, they were having they were a couple or an item, and they got into a car accident and can't be in it. So they have to recast or rewrite it with like just a few minutes out from shooting.
They had 2 hours, but they're 2 hours away from anybody.
So they put his wife in it because she had read the script a bunch, and she was an actress. And then he decided to take over the part of the director, and
she quit acting because we find out a little bit into as the film is playing out. Her daughter says, "Oh, she got 200 roles. She actually broke another actor's arm one day," and of course that plays into the film.
And then the hilarious thing, like one of the lead actors of like the young guy who's the zombie in the beginning part, he's like a pop star or something, and he's been a real prima donna and difficult to work with. So when the director is in the one cut, he's like yelling at him and dressing him
You're
down.
gonna ask me questions.
Smacks him. Yeah, you're talking back. And then he makes the poor female lead, because she's been really prissy the whole time. Like, well, I don't cry. I have to use the teardrops, or like the eye drop bottle. And she was like, well, we can't have the zombie throw up on me because my agency doesn't want that. It'll ruin my image.
She's like, I don't matter. I don't care about my agency.
Yeah. And like, it's so these fun caricatures of of difficult actors. Which
And then the sound guy, he has
thing.
issues, but he's like a dick about it. He's like, I sent an email.
Oh my God, I know that guy. But that guy is out there.
Yeah,
He's the one that
Those guys
said
are coming
he could
here.
only drink soft water,
Yeah,
hard
'cause he'll
water.
be
And it wasn't just
diarrhea.
that. He was just like, I sent an email. Like, he's like a dick about it,
Well,
too.
but then the
It's like-
funny part was, so it's like if it's psychosomatic or whatever, but he then does have diarrhea, and he's leaned up against the side of the building just blowing crap out, and the director's handing him toilet paper.
Yeah. So the part that I connected with too is doing live TV production, because I did that, TV, and it would be like insane stuff behind the scenes, but you're watching it and it's like, okay, it's going along fine. You know what I mean? You don't realize. Same thing with acting, on stage. It's just like, and you have no time, you don't have like when you're shooting regular film, it's just like you have to go, and the show's not stopping for an hour and a half, or however long your production is, and you're like putting out fires left and right. And that's what this whole thing is. Like it shows like the bottled chaos of making a film too, just like really compressed. You know what I mean? What are you laughing at?
Because I know you talked about like the new stuff. I remember you showed me the video once. It was like when they had the Christmas stuff downtown.
Yeah.
And the person running the camera couldn't
God.
be there. So they let some random guy run the camera.
Oh my God.
And then the guy, so he's like,
I was a maintenance guy. They let run the camera for the live shot for the news.
and it wasn't like he just sat there and helped. He was going for it. He's like zooming in and
here's the
moving
thing.
around.
It wasn't a live shot of a reporter standing there talking, which is like hard enough for a guy who has no experience with a broadcast camera. It's not auto settings. he was getting a reporter that was ice skating around a skating rink, and he was like zooming in crash shoes, and it was like this the whole time. And of course, these people on the stage were like, "What the hell is going on? Who's shooting this?" Like that type of stuff. Like what happened? Like that specifically was something visible on air, but essentially it was that stuff behind the scenes all the time, and that's what this film.
I just love that story because like the dude just went for it.
Yes, he thought he had been shooting movies for like 30 years.
He's like, no. My last name is Spielberg.
Yeah.
No, but that's like
he
the
could have done a
girl.
wide shot and done this and been perfect, but instead he just was like
Going
going
in.
super tight, zooming
No, but
out.
that's like the girl in the thing. She was like, "Oh, you should,
Yes,
you know."
yeah.
And then the camera guy hurts his back, and then she's like, "Oh," and then she does it, and they're like, "Oh, that's so great." Yeah.
So there's
And she gets her little moment to shine.
Yes.
And two, even the back problem, like everybody at the TV station with the camera guys,
Yep.
a lot of the old timers have back surgery or shoulder
Yeah.
surgery. I have a bad back. I had kind of had one already, and that was part of the reason I quit because it was destroying my back too. I'm like, I don't want to be 50 because of this job, making this money. You know what I mean? To
Yeah.
destroy my back.
because like I'll go play. Like I went and did pictures for some event you went to for like a character thing recently, and just walking around like on a tile floor with just a
Yeah.
4 pound or a 4 pound camera lens like combo thing. By the end of it, your back hurts. And it's not just it's the constant being like in a position. And just being in like a lot of times being kind of stationary.
as possible, you know. So
So it's just like a lot of things where anybody, like I said, so if you've done independent film stuff, a lot of that really connects better.
and two, if after the credits roll too, they're showing the third layer to it or fourth layer to it, where
The behind the scenes
what
of
we're
the
seeing
real-
in the film is the first part is we're watching a one take of them shooting a film basically because I
With
think
no
you're seeing
context.
another camera, I think, right? Or do you see another? No, you don't see another camera yet, but then you see another camera, but then you realize. To get this whole thing done, they had another camera behind that, which you don't
Yeah.
really think about when you're watching
Yeah.
it. But it's like they had 3 layers deep, so they even show. I don't know if you watch the credits, but
Yeah,
like
we watched them.
But like you know, the guy whenever he falls down, that guy sits on the camera and he's taking 2 drinks of
I
water
know,
working
they brought
because
the
I mean it's like a
water.
37-minute thing.
Yeah,
Like
and
how
them running
that
around.
endurance, like I
Yeah.
love that. Like they're like, hey, this is actually, and you see the guys that like threw the body in, and so they just recreated that with actors
Yeah.
for that scene. You know. It's just there's so many layers to like it's like an Inception level of
Yes. No, but it's and
behind the
that's
scenes filmmaking.
and so like obviously to your point, like that's right on line with like independent filmmaking in general. But like for me as an actor watching it, I was just like, oh, this is exactly like Noises Off because you literally have moments where like when you see the backstage part where they're performing on stage, and so the audience is watching, and so you have like one actor who's drunk is like falling over backstage, and so they have like a cue and there's a bunch of doors on set, and so the actors back are having to scream just so the audience on the other side can hear them because they're talking through a set.
Yeah.
And they're like screaming at the lines out. And so they're like yelling off stage to be heard. And then like you see the actors like crawling around like below the window so they can't be seen and like throwing a prop on stage and then like going back. And that's this movie does that. And that's why I'm like, no, if you know Noises Off, you have to watch this movie.
And two,
it's so funny.
I was trying to think of other stuff that reminded me of it, and nobody else watches It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia, do they?
I've seen occasionally when it's on, but I have not watched it.
Well, there's like one episode that was it's either Dayman or Nightman. I think it's Dayman, where Charlie Day's character Charlie does a stage production, and it's ridiculous and everything. So like it's just like when you have you're seeing the story and the behind the scenes, you're seeing what's being presented to the audience, people watching it, and then you know all the struggle behind it.
Yeah.
It can be really fun. Because there's a lot of movies about the art of making movies and the disasters. Because I haven't watched it yet, but there's the Dolomite Is My Name, the new Eddie Murphy movie on Netflix about somebody at the age of 47 making their first movie and stuff. So
I've seen like Dolomite, the first film that this is like based, you know, that character made.
That's good.
But I can't wait to watch.
Yeah, I want to watch, but just like, so sometimes like the behind the scenes making movie stuff can be kind of grating because it's really just self-referential and really self-aggrandizing and people just really playing inside baseball where it's only stuff people who work on things know about. But this one I think can be really appreciated without all that knowledge.
Yeah.
And, can be appreciated a little bit more if you've worked on, like you said, like the new stuff, or if you've worked on a film project and you just know that.
This is like a condensed version of all the things that go wrong when making a film. You know what I mean? Like all the problems that arise, all the fires you got to put out. It's just like, this is it condensed down.
And I will say though, the main difference being though, when you are not doing a one take, you have cuts that you can reset. So that's the only reason why I could be comparing to theater is having done traditional film where you have plenty of cuts. Like there is a difference where if something goes wrong, you can reset or whatever.
Yeah.
For the most part, obviously. Yeah. Cool. But like,
well, and I mean too, all the complications with all the crew involved. You know what I mean? Just making everybody happy. And
that is the funny thing because I've in my years of doing theater, I've never known those actors to be. I mean, I'm sure there's plenty of stage managers who are like, gonna cuss me out or whatever. But like, I've never known theater actors to be too prissy pants. Mm-hmm. But like, I do know of like film actors being very much like that. I don't know. I've also heard horror stories from stage managers.
Yeah, I mean, not to. Well, it seems like if somebody goes into theater, they may have other motives, but they're there for the act of acting. You know what I mean?
Storytelling, art.
Sometimes people get into filmmaking because they want to be on camera or they like, you know what I mean? Like they don't know. Yes, that's what I'm saying. So I could see why there may be more of those.
Yeah.
And something I'll be interested to see, which I'm like you said, they shot in 8 days.
A lot easier to shoot a film in your living room too than actually,
do a production.
Get on a production.
They're both different animals.
Yeah.
And that's the thing too, is there are plenty of actors on stage who are brilliant who probably would not be able to master film acting and vice versa. And there's plenty of actors who can do both and they're amazing comedians. But like, anyway, sorry, that's not me diminishing any form of the art of storytelling. It's 100% me saying though, specific to theater where the show must go on. I've personally have worked with actors who had stomach viruses and they had to keep a bucket off stage for the vomit because they had to just like, and like if you had to work it into a scene, you go do it and you keep it running.
Call me back when the bucket's for poop.
Yeah.
So that's probably been a thing too. That's probably been a thing too.
But like the
just use the volume.
Thing I'll be interested to see is the one cut version. So like obviously they shot it in one take, the one cut they use, and then they and the recreation back into the movie kind of recreate the scenes and have cuts and traditional things. They can kind of work around it. I do wonder though if anything in the one cut wasn't intended just because of the way things went, and then they then worked that back into the cinematic portion.
Well, watching it, even them throwing the bodies in, I could see them being like, "Oh, this will be a funny gag to see them throw the." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like there were so many things when I thought, like they could have, and like what was that? It was 8 days, so I guess maybe they did that first and then did a quick turnaround on like, hey, they because they had to probably have molded to how that.
Because if you shot the one take last, it could not match with a lot of stuff you shot.
Yeah.
Right.
So,
I absolutely believe that was probably something they had to do.
And then too, you wonder like, well, how much of it was them shooting the one take at the? Well, I mean, like they obviously cut it up though, because you saw where they, like you said, the guy was drinking water and stuff. So, like it'd be interesting to see how much of it they filmed while they were filming the one take. Like how much did they knock out at the same time?
Yeah, probably none of it.
It's a lot of layers.
There's so much there.
That's so much to handle.
And it's like they not only made a one take zombie film in the first 37 minutes, they did all these little specific jokes that they built in that paid off at the end. Like it wasn't just that. It was like, oh my, you know what I mean? Like the expertise it took to pull that off is way more. There's way more there than even at first seems to be, even though it takes a lot just to pull off a basic one. You know?
That was super impressive. Because here's the thing. So even though like the first half of it is cringeworthy because you're like, oh man, the acting, the special effects, whatever. But even that. Even if that really was the movie, to have the stamina on the crew's part, the cast part, to be able to like run around and do that's impressive.
Because there have been
switch out the body, switch out bodies and having blood effects and everything.
Yeah, that is impressive.
There was the one movie called Victoria. I think it's been on. It's either on Netflix now or it was. It's like a one take movie. Or I think they did 3 full run throughs and shot it, and then just released the one that was the best. Wasn't there some like I forget what artist it was. There was a live streamed one take thing they filmed. I forget who did that. Woody Harrelson?
Was Woody? Yeah, I think Woody Harrelson.
So there's been stuff like that that's happened, but I don't think.
You
like,
mean live theater?
well, no.
I'm sorry, but come on. Like, live theater's been around for a long time.
Okay, so then there's...
I'm just saying. And those are 3-hour productions.
But no, I'm saying, though,
I'm
the
just
element
saying.
of... So they've done, like, those episodes of 30 Rock that were live.
Yeah.
So here's the thing. A stage production is a huge deal.
But you don't have a camera guy having to keep things in focus.
But you don't have marks. You don't have audio. You
Yes.
don't have all this... I mean, you have audio, but you don't have things to the
marks.
same extent.
Yeah.
Well, you have the marks. I'm just saying, like, you don't have to worry about the camera movement and the camera work.
Well,
Like,
and
it's-
this
you just
specifically, there's so
rehearse
many
it.
gore effects too that they're having to do, and you even see some of that when she's like blowing the pipe.
Yeah.
You know, for all the axe
Yeah.
stabs and stuff.
But how you do it is you just rehearse it. I mean, again, like but when you rehearse like stage theater, like it's not just the actors up there. It's the people in the light booth
Yeah.
are like walking.
Nailing.
They gotta like listen for the cue and hit the button, and that's not the same thing as a camera. But if you're
It's a production, yeah.
But if you're recording live,
well, I mean, I think the other part is, though, the element of, you add in the layer of it's being broadcast live. So, you can have stage shows that are in front of tens of thousands of people. Concerts are tens of thousands of people, or 100,000 people or whatever. But the idea of, because people view live theater and critique it differently than film or TV. Because film or TV, like, oh, that's a mistake, that's an error. Haha, I see what's wrong there, and then it takes them out of it, and they get upset or mad or whatever. As opposed, I would think for live theater, there's a little bit more forgiveness for something because you're literally seeing the person in front of you.
Live. But that's a difference, though, when you do see, the whole like coffee cup in Game of Thrones. It's like, but also they did how many takes of this scene and no one caught that. Well, I mean, I'm not. That's
Well, the
not
takes,
me.
that was the editing. It's like, in our own stuff, we have had things where, before, I don't think there's ever been anything that we released and just didn't know whatsoever. And you would think on something like Game of Thrones, there's so many people that would have watched it. How did nobody see that?
Well, but that was the best take, and they just didn't pay it. Anyway, so I get it. I'm just saying, but I guess what I'm getting at, though, is I do fully believe it would be very difficult. But I do fully believe that if someone wanted to accomplish that and it not be like a cringe word, and actually make like something that was meant to be good, you can. It just requires weeks of rehearsal, like a show does, like a stage show does.
Well, I think, though, like another thing, because like I said, for that one take contest, I watched so many one takes, and then the inherent problem with it, because a lot of times you can stage a scene with cuts and editing and music and build up and turn something that on the day you shot it was really nothing in terms of like an action beat, but then in the editing, it really gets amped up. Because like an example, so like the sequence you did, Sean, for that horror anthology, Volumes of Blood, where the character gets like the head smash thing. Mm-hmm. Watching it on set, that was really just, moving. There wasn't a lot to it. But then the way it was cut together makes people like turn away and wince. There's a lot of movies that do that, where you see something and you turn away and you wince. Like that you set up. I'm trying to think of like the setup for something where you see something happen and just the way it's staged, it makes you then anticipate, and it's so much worse.
Oh, yeah.
And that happens all the time. But when a one take type deal is going on, you have a lot of the person's out of the frame and they're hitting down, and you see a blood, and then they set things up in a way that you're not seeing what's happening, and you see the aftermath. And it doesn't really work the same way. And this movie really does that to great effect when it shows like they're just plopping some body parts in.
Yeah. I mean, so to play devil's advocate, my only thing is that Get Out does that. Get Out is on a one take, and they have plenty of scenes where when he has go snooze, come here. Alfred Hitchcock does that too. I mean, there's plenty of, even when it's on a one take, there's plenty of.
No, I'm just saying there's a difference between a well-staged shot where something happens right off camera and somebody just kind of lazily hacking with a fake axe into nothing. Is there somebody off camera going, like there's a lot of stuff that's that falls apart when you watch it, and there's no reason you would do that as a one take and shoot it that way aside from to do it as a one take. Yeah. But like I said, this movie really takes the piss out of all that and makes it funny. So it's not so funny. Because the thing is, there are plenty of people that make like you said, like live performance versus film performance. like I've seen people make, feature films or short films or whatever and show you or want you to give them feedback and you watch it and you're like, oh boy, I don't really know what I can tell you if you're looking for positive feedback, but I think with live theater, people probably have a better sense of what was a good performance or not. Does anybody ever come off stage having given the most cringeworthy, terrible performance you've seen and like, that was good, right? Am I going to be getting a call from the New York Times? Like, I would think it's probably less because a lot of times you need to have some education to get into it. I mean, you can walk off the street and apply for some local, small town production.
Audition.
But what did I say?
Apply.
Well,
It's okay because I've talked about auditioning for jobs.
but you have to apply.
I forget. I'm
is
like,
audition, though.
in the real world.
But don't you have
Apply.
to apply to be able to audition?
It's still considered. I mean, it depends.
Don't they still do
It depends on
background
the
checks
level.
to make sure you're not a
Background checks,
murderer?
no, they don't.
There's murderers on stage. now.
Yeah, you don't have to
But
apply
the-
for unless you're working with children.
What was the point? The
You don't
point
have to.
was, it just seems like with movies, there's a lot of people who have no awareness whatsoever of like what they've just made or done. And then with this one, it kind of pokes fun at that because the people watching this at the station are like, oh, Not Without a Hitch. And they're talking it up. And
Well, there's even some errors too when, again, it's almost like, everything does not go smoothly with this production, but it was just a feat to get it done. That's what filmmaking is too. It's like if you just get something made, that is a huge feat to even just make it.
Right.
And I feel like there's also like some small things where it's like, you know what, even if you do have some screw ups, some people may not notice. Maybe only you notice. Or maybe
Yeah.
they're not even paying attention because half
Yeah.
people are on their phones because like one of the like head producers, she's like on her phone and the one guy's like, aren't they holding this shot for a long time? And he looks up and then it's like fine. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it's like
yeah.
there's so many things that may go wrong, but if you can at least just make something, like that is a huge feat. And that's what by the end of this, it's like everybody pulled it off and it was like
Yeah.
the biggest thing in
And
the
then at
world.
the end, they'll smile about it.
Yes,
And they're
yeah.
just like, well, we did it.
Yes, yeah.
We almost died,
and two,
but we
there-
did it. Yeah.
There's the element where the director is hired because he's cheap, fast, and average.
Yeah.
And he then, in this production, kind of just goes for it and goes above and beyond, just providing the kind of boring, acceptable mediocrity.
But he gets like pushed down a lot too because he always like, okay, we can't throw up on you. Okay, we're gonna use water drop. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? But then he explodes on some people and then he comes back. Then he explodes again. Then his daughter like helps him basically get a
Yeah.
backbone. And then there's a whole thing with, at the very end they hand him the picture of like his daughter on her shoulders and she basically respects him again. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
seeing
Well, she's
respected.
on
Like
his shoulders too.
yes, that's what I'm saying. Like they like make sure you know that parallel of now as an
Yeah.
adult she's on her
Yeah, that was
shoulders.
super
But
sweet.
talking about one takes too, there's this. I'm just mentioning this film because I think the film is great, but it's called Khalil Blues. It is and now I can't remember what country it is from. It's from China, but there is a 40-minute one take in this at some point. But it is very different than this because it is somebody going to basically going traveling to someplace, but you're traveling along kind of the countryside of China.
Oh,
And
cool.
it is they rehearsed it and they did it several times, but it's nothing intricate, it's not perfect, but it's like it makes you realize it doesn't have to be perfect because the
Yeah.
effect of this is you get such a sensation of the place, unlike if it was shot traditionally, because you're
Right.
just seeing it naturally. You know what I mean? You're seeing it unfiltered and you're watching these people go along and you're seeing like kind of the communities and everything. And it is like, so by the end of it, it's just like transfixing and so incredible. One shots can be different things. They can be this genre thing that's kind of like, oh, whatever.
So-
They're doing it as a gimmick, but it can also like really put you in a place, and really not having that break can really absorb you in the experience, and almost like meditation or something, where it's like you start thinking about one thing and suddenly you forget what you're watching, or you're not
Right.
thinking about the one take, and you start getting absorbed in it, and it's just like that. And he basically he did another film recently called, I think it's called Long Day's Journey into Night, which I've been waiting for it to come here, but apparently he does it's shot in 3D, does some incredible one take in that as well. But that's some other type of one take. You know what I mean? It
Yeah.
has a different function.
Well, so speaking of everything you just said, episode 6 of Haunting of Hill House
Oh yeah, I heard that was a one take. Yeah.
it has like, I think it's 2 or 3 one takes, but each one is like almost is like 16, 18
Because it's, you know,
Yeah.
it's I forget how long, between like 50 minutes and an hour long
And
episode.
those are
and it's
intricate.
and it's 3 takes
Yeah.
involving switching from one location to another. So they built the set to be able to do all these things.
It's amazing. Like, it's so funny because, like, that episode, you go into it and you're watching and all of a sudden you're just like, there's been no cuts.
Yeah.
And it's so good. It's, oh man.
And then
yeah.
you see the background stuff from it of
Yes.
how they're actually doing it, and it's what this movie shows. Like
Yeah.
there's somebody that's just behind something out of frame and they flop into something. And one of the guys we had met at Filmapalooza was one of the stand-ins for that.
Oh, cool.
It was one of the B team that did all the rehearsals for the tech crew to get everything on cue
Yeah.
for camera, audio, and lighting.
Yeah, that's the thing is it's just, sorry, I keep calling about theater, but like I've been in shows where
Theatre.
I was in a Thurman show back in college. Was that me?
I'm not sure what that was.
Was it this?
No, it wasn't you. I don't-
Oh, no, that was you rubbing your hand over the
Oh, it made
microphone,
all that
and then that
noise.
was coming through the
Okay.
headphones.
Okay.
So don't touch it.
Sorry about that. Yeah, I was at a 3-woman show, and so we're on stage the entire time, literally. Like, our changing rooms are behind these big, what are they called? The changing, I can't remember what they're called. Anyway, we changed on stage. So we were on stage the entire time, even during intermission. And so, point being, like, so we like, all 3 of us, like, we rehearsed a lot, like, in our own time and then, like, at rehearsals. And so, come, like, tech week, we had all our line, like, we were good, you know, line-wise. And so, it came, and then I got laryngitis. So, was it final dress? Yeah, final dress rehearsal the night before opening night. I got laryngitis to the point where the director stopped us in the middle of sorry, this is a digression of a story. The director stopped us in the middle of a scene. I was so embarrassed because final dress rehearsal, that's a performance. You treat it like a performance. You do not stop unless you're literally dying. Like, you don't, it's a performance. And so he stops us in the middle of a scene and says, "You're going to hurt yourself," talking at me because my voice was, like, clearly in distress. And so I was dealing with a cold. And so anyway, so the next morning I had to, like, call my ENT and get, like, a steroid injection just so I could, like, perform that night and have a voice for the weekend. Sorry, but at one point though, he was just like, "Look, like, you guys have this down. The point of this rehearsal was for the crew because we had a ton of, like, lighting and sound cues, and so we, like, the rest of the rehearsal, I think we just did essentially like a tech rehearsal where you just, like, go from
hit
cue
your
to
marks and
cue."
stuff. Yeah.
And so anyway, that's my digression.
I mean, yeah,
Sorry,
there's
but
so
no one
many
cares about it.
things. Again, like, the audience would never know, like, oh, this, you know, it was a big issue, or,
Yeah, and
or
so
a touch and go. Like, is this going to work out?
The
Like,
cool thing was the audience did not know, anyone who did not know me did not know that I had to get a steroid injection for my laryngitis
Yeah.
that morning, the day of.
Yeah. This film, again, it just heightens all that stuff. And yeah, if you have experience with any of those things, like, it's just so much more enjoyable. But at the end of the day, it's a comedy, and that's what made me wonder, like, is this actually a horror film? You know what I mean?
Comedy.
Yeah, like, it's none of this is actually happening. You know, like, would you consider, like, is this a zombie? I guess it scratches that itch for the first 37 minutes, but so I feel like audiences can get a lot of things out of this. If people are interested in seeing kind of the zombie stuff and they're okay with it not being perfect or whatever, they may love this first section of it. And then they may get some other sort of enjoyment out of the end of it. You know, it's...
Because plenty of people enjoy watching bad movies because it's a bad movie and it's funny. You know, it's the same reason why we enjoyed Mystery Science Theater 3000. Like, that's because you have comedians giving feedback the entire time. But, you know, bad movies are funny. So you at least have that for those people. I never really enjoyed watching bad movies unless I had the robots giving feedback. But anyway, it's definitely a comedy, and it sucks because you can't advertise that too much without just taking away that really fun
I think at some
reveal.
point, if people are just kind of saying,
I mean,
hey, this is what this film is. Now this is why you should watch
I
it.
could very easily see a traditionally cut trailer that shows, like, that we need you to shoot this in one take live zombie film.
And
like,
too, some people might not be interested. Like, oh, I don't care about that. You know, they might not know why that's entertaining if they've never had experience doing, you know, film production or theater or live TV production. They might not know why that's where the drama is in that, or why that would be exciting at all.
So maybe what we should do is we should do a one-take feature film where we have somebody that doesn't know how to use a camera use it. And let's just see what happens. We're zooming. Oh, we zoomed in on their nose. We've got their eyeball. I mean, it's just, there's all these funny things you could do. So this movie, it's like, to me, it was very, very enjoyable once you got past once you pulled back out to the quote unquote real world. It's like, oh, okay. And then even then, like the beginning of that, I was kind of like, okay, where's this going? And then once you got into the movie, then I was just loving it. So I think it pulls like a really tough trick of, it's a movie that you really don't want to know what the basics of it are to enjoy it. But the beginning part's a little bit of a slog that may turn people off.
It's a unique structure where it's like the first 37 minutes is like one film. Then you watch another film, but then it changes what you know about that first film.
Yes.
You know what I mean? It's like,
and now I want to go back and watch it again.
It does all these things. But yeah, it's just super fun. Super unique experience. Like, yeah, this is like one of my top 5 of the year. But yeah, I'd probably give it like maybe a 9. There's something I love personally about it though. Like, because I did work in TV production, it's like, oh, this is like a 10 out of 10. Like, because it's like, I just love it.
So here's the only reason why I don't give it a 10, because here's the thing. Me knowing what the cast and crew had to go through to make that movie happen, all aspects of it, I'm like, that's a fucking 10. But the unfortunate thing is they're going to lose so many people by not advertising it as having a wink at the end of it, you know, wink, nudge, nudge. You want to stick around for this one. They don't do that in the marketing of it. And so you're going to lose so many people by the first 37 minutes.
I guess the only thing in its favor is if it's on a streaming platform that's more horror specific, you're probably dealing with more genre fans that have a tolerance for things, because there are straight up movies on the service that look and play out like the first 37 minutes.
Or that are way more boring than the first, that people will watch.
I mean, because
this Shudder, I think, was a perfect spot for this. I'm so glad they picked that up at least.
But I definitely could see, like, it's one of those things where it would really suck, but I could definitely see you doing a remake, but you would really have to recapture that magic.
I know.
And stick to what made it work and do it like a slightly higher budget level and stuff like that.
Well, it'd be hard. That's the thing, too, is that I'm sure this movie was hard, you know, and that's where you need to get people on board.
Because if there were 8 days
to work,
if there were 8 days of shooting, there was probably weeks of rehearsals or planning and walkthrough.
So that's the thing, is it'd be much more time consuming. So you have to get people who. That's the thing too. You got to get people who are good on film, but probably do have.
From what I looked up, they said it was relatively inexperienced, unknown actors. They said that's what. Maybe it was just unknown, but they acted like the cat. Yeah, it's a cast of unknowns. They said
so. Unknowns make sense,
maybe.
But if they have any kind of,
I might have like misspoke there.
I just have a hard time believing.
Well, nobody has IMDb pictures, but IMDb may not be that big in Japan. One, two, from remember from the Filmpalooza for the 48 hours, like the 48-hour film festival, the entries from Japan were amazing.
And some of these people may have been from that comedy troupe, so they may have like on stage experience.
That's the thing, is
because the comedic performance was so good.
Yeah, their comedy was amazing. So I will say this: I cannot remember who it was or when exactly, but it was. People were asking me questions about One Must Fall, and I literally cannot remember who it was, or like what maybe was it Horror Hound? I don't remember. But someone at one point, and they did not mean anything by the question or comment, but they said something like, "Oh, well, so One Must Fall is your first feature film, so you've not really acted before, have you?" And I was just like, never mind the fact that I've been acting on stage for the past 10 years, but it's because they
see it as a different thing.
Right. And that's not, I am by no means, like, I still have a lot of room to grow as a performer, but like, it was just funny because, and again, nothing was meant by that comment. It was just like that perception of like, oh, well,
but the weird thing is though, you've been in other stuff.
Well, yeah, I've been in short films. I've not been a lead in a feature or anything. I've been a part of other films and I've been in short films, but like, but it's just like, oh, but I've been acting.
Yeah.
And I've been the lead on stage many times. So it's just funny where it's
Well,
like,
it's a lot of times the thing is people don't care about stage,
Well,
and then they
they're-
don't care about
It's not on
films.
IMDb.
I don't think
They
that
don't
they don't
see.
care. They're not, that's not a part of
aware.
their universe.
So
they're dealing with
That's what I'm saying.
every
So they
day.
don't care, and it's not a
Yeah.
bad thing. It's just there are
Yeah.
plenty of people, and say that you know you've done other film roles. If it's not the thing that they care about, then they don't care. Because there's people that probably go up to I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Ewan McGregor, like, oh yeah, so Star Wars Episode 1 Phantom Menace, your first movie, right?
Yeah.
It's like he's in a lot of stuff. It's like I don't care about the British stuff. I want to talk about Star Wars.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that where you know you've done a body of work, but just since it's not someone's cup of tea, they don't care about it whatsoever and consider the first thing you did that matches their
Or
taste
maybe
what
that
they care
don't
about.
care. I don't think that's an appropriate.
Or it's also
phrasing.
just they don't-
They're just not aware.
They don't deal in that world whatsoever, so they
Yes.
don't care about it.
I think that's
They don't
but
understand. They don't understand the
Well, if you work at a corporate, you know, America Fortune 500 job, but you had plenty of retail jobs before that, plenty of people will be like, "Oh, your first real job," and it's like, "Well, no, I've been working for years before this, but this is the first one that they consider to be real."
Well, I did years ago. I was working in a cafe, and it was in 2015. Yeah, and that's so. I haven't, unfortunately. I keep talking about theater, but I've not done it since 2015. My last show was in 2015, and so. But in 2014, I did, you know, up until then, I was doing every year at least 2 or 3 shows, kind of pretty regularly, and it was so funny. This one woman I worked with made some comment like, "Julie, when are you going to be a real actress?" And I'm like, I mean,
yeah.
I don't. But what she meant was, when are you going to make it big like J-Law? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, that's never going to happen.
Well,
Because that's one, even so. Jennifer Lawrence apparently supposedly back when she lived in Louisville was with Heyman, and I feel
it's
like
a local talent agency.
a local talent agency here in Louisville, Kentucky. And I feel like right after she landed her first X-Men movie, so years ago, right when she really broke out big, there was a news article in the Courier Journal, a local newspaper. And Heyman was pretty much like, yeah, we didn't get that for her. She got lucky. Like, Heyman went on a record.
Because she got that movie Winter's Bone, and
Yes.
then got
But that opened the door for her to then get into X-Men.
right around the same time got X-Men and Hunger Games.
Yeah.
So a lot of money.
Yeah, a lot of money and a lot of luck.
A lot of
luck. I mean, she's a wonderful actress and she's gorgeous, but so are many.
I mean, look at like Christoph Waltz, who
Yeah.
was in Inglourious Bastards and Django Unchained and a bunch of movies since then. He had a very long career, but that
He did
one,
like a lot of German soap operas or TVs or something.
yeah, but it's like being that one specific role then
Yeah.
blew open the film world. And
And
he's like the
suddenly he was in the villain in Green Hornet.
he's in,
that was the next
and then
thing.
he was in
Yeah.
James Bond.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I guess we can kind of wrap up our discussion of One Cut of the Dead, a movie that
I hope Derek watches this. I know
Yeah,
he's
I'll
going to start watching it and either turn it off or get on his phone and then not pay attention.
I'll tell him like, look, dude, it's got X-Men in it. If you get to minute 40, you'll see some X-Men. But yeah, so like the
Secret X-Men movie.
I'm not sure exactly the order these podcasts are getting released in.
Yeah.
I know Dr. Sleep will be out, the episode we
first,
discussed
probably.
that. But like watching Dr. Sleep and then this back to back, like that was like a fun, like very different mix of movies.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I'll watch stuff where it's like, ugh.
Yeah.
But those two was like, okay, I really enjoyed those. And they gave me like renewed enthusiasm to like dig into some other stuff.
Yeah.
So, yeah, movie I really
I would
enjoyed and had
recommend
fun
going to
with.
see The Lighthouse.
Yeah, I wanna see that.
Yeah, I want to see that.
I would recommend that.
Yep. So,
Derek saw Terminator. He seemed to like it.
oh, Dark Fate.
Oh.
Yep, so that'll wrap up our discussion of One Cut of the Dead. You can do us a huge favor, leave a review if you're listening via iTunes or any other podcast service. We always enjoy seeing comments and feedback on YouTube, and you can always send us an email at podcast@housemoviestore.com. Find everything we're doing at hbtvs.com. And you can find everything Julie's doing on Facebook at Julie Striebel-actress. And was it the last episode we mentioned One Must Fall, the movie?
We'll mention it again.
So it's the number 1 Must Fall.
Yes.
You can get it depending on the time this is released. It'll be before December. You can pre-order it on iTunes, and
We want you to pre-order on iTunes because we really, really want to get it. Apparently,
it's $12.
that was
think.
it. I haven't even checked the price.
I think so.
Yeah, it's like $12.99, I think.
So yeah, but pre-ordering it, it's released on December 3rd, and we want people to pre-order it because it makes it go up in the ranks as being on the home page is like what's being offered. So obviously having it go up in the ranks makes it more.
You just want to be on that. You want to be on the landing page, so it's more visible and
more visibility. So that's pretty cool.
People. Yeah, so it's One Must Fall. It's set in the 80s. It is kind of a slasher about a crime scene cleanup crew that gets stuck with the killer.
Yes, I am the lead. So if you think I'm...
Oh, she's on the poster.
Yeah, I'm on the poster.
I have a disc copy, but I'm going to pre-order digital too.
So
right now.
If you think I'm not annoying to listen to... Well, and here's the thing, though. Even though I'm like the lead or whatever, like
it's an ensemble. There's plenty of other people in it,
and we have a lot of really. So if you do think I'm annoying, still watch it because we have a really great.
So Barry, who is in the movie,
yes,
he's won a bunch of awards.
Yeah, so Barry, our killer, he's blowing out all the water. He's gotten aside from the film as a whole, he's gotten the most nominations. And won. He's won Best Performer. He's won, and there was I forget what the festival was, but he won Best Actor and Best Villain in the same festival. So he's and he's the sweetest guy in real life.
And you've won a couple of awards.
Yeah, I've won a couple, but like Barry's amazing, and he's 100% like he's very engaging, and he has a lot of amazing monologues and just dialogue in general. So. I know I might be biased, but I'm a big fan of people that were in the film.
Yeah, I'm excited. It got distributions to be out this year, you know.
And then
sometimes stuff linger, and then they take forever to come out or find somebody to help put them out. So
yeah, so go pre-order that, and then go to hptvs.com and buy some shirts from our merch store. But
buy their shirts and wear them while you're watching One Must Fall.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because we don't do...
Get a cat on your lap while you're doing it.
Because,
complete it.
We are sponsored by McDonald's and Burger King on this podcast.
And Burger King has the Impossible Whopper, which I'm really excited about.
So, no, actually...
So on that note...
No, go Taco Bell.
Yeah, so, I do like Taco Bell.
Yeah, so that'll wrap up this episode of the House of Videos for Podcast. Thanks for listening.
House by the